Shares for Beginners.
I think you want to say, I want to build for myself my own investment thesis. I don't want to be looking at, various online stock recommendation platforms and just sort of say, oh, look, they recommend this, I'm going to buy that. Well, okay, maybe that's one piece of input, but you want to be taking some other pieces of input as well, and for yourself, making your own decisions by being able to build that structure and the frameworks of what it is that makes you comfortable with your particular investment.
G'day and welcome back to Shares for Beginners. I'm Phil Muscatello. Are you mentally overloaded? How much information can you usefully process and retain? Is the weight of the world on your shoulders? My guest today believes that you can not only cope, but indeed thrive in our information-rich world. Hello, Ross.
Hi, great to be with you.
Ross Dawson is the author of Thriving on Overload, The 5 Powers for Success in a World of Exponential Information. He's a world-leading futurist, entrepreneur, and keynote speaker. He's the founding chairman of the Advanced Human Technologies group of companies with clients like Citibank, Coca-Cola, Google, Microsoft, News Limited, Procter & Gamble, PwC, and Walmart. Ross has delivered keynote speeches and strategy workshops to business and government leaders in over 30 countries. So what was it that you were noticing in the world that led you to write this book, Thriving on Overload?
Well, the story goes back a long way, so 25 years or more, really. And it stemmed, in fact, from my work in financial markets and capital markets. So I worked for Merrill Lynch, then for Thomson Financial, finally as the global director of capital markets. And what I saw was that there were people in the financial markets who were more immersed in information than anyone else. And what they were doing was using their brains to be able to work out what were the right information, what was the most relevant to them, what they could use to be able to make better decisions. Yet this was a skill which the best people at this had developed for themselves. This was not something they'd been educated in, either at school or university or even in their organizations. So I saw this opportunity not just for people in financial markets, but also far beyond to be able to develop those capabilities. So in fact, 25 years ago, I was running the first offering of my first company was providing investment banks and their people with training on how to be better at taking a world of information and to be able to make sense of that. So it's been quite a journey since then. I've written a number of other books on more around organizations and so on, but it's coming back. This has just been the right moment to be able to distill these ideas, ones which I've developed a lot further over these last 25 years as working as a futurist and being myself immersed in a world of overload, to distill these ideas into something which is useful and practical and pragmatic for people to, in a world of unlimited information, to be able to discern what is useful to them, pull that together, and to be able to make better decisions, including, of course, in their investments.
So at what point do you think the world changed? Was there information overload, say, in the 90s, or was there a kind of like a finite kind of amount of information that the human brain was able to deal with in financial markets?
Well, I'd say just more broadly, that's the basic parameter is we have finite cognition in a world of infinite information, and that's basically applied just as much 20, 30 years ago as it is today. It's just that there is far, far more information, which makes it far more difficult to be able to discern the signal amongst the noise. So I did write an article called Information Overload, Problem or Opportunity, literally 25 years ago. And there that was already the situation then. Now it is simply more accentuated in that it is harder and harder as there is more and more information to be able to define what is useful and relevant to us compared with what is not useful and not relevant to us. So it's not as if there's a sudden threshold. This has always been the case, or as long as all of us have been alive, I would imagine, or certainly since the advent of the internet. But now it is more and more pointed, more and more challenging, but also I would say more and more opportunity, because we all have all the information that we could possibly need.
Oh, so you're optimistic about this. There is opportunity in all of this.
In a way, I see that there's a dividing society and this division between individuals now, I say the default response to this overload of information is that people just get sucked up in the irrelevant. And you can just look around you on public transport or when you're around, see people scrolling through information, which is probably not going to serve their lives very much. And so the default of our brain, where our brains are geared to the novel, to the new, to the spectacular, to the horrific, whatever. So we get sucked into it. However, we have a choice. We don't need to follow those sort of, basic instincts of just sort of going down these rabbit holes. We can take a step back. We can say, this is all right. This is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to know. This is the decision I need to make. This is the information that will serve me. This is the place I will find this information. This is how I'll organize this. So I think we are already seeing more and more the division between those who are getting sucked down these rabbit holes and just getting lost in the morass of information, and those who are exceeding and outperforming and succeeding on extraordinary scales because they are simply doing this better than everyone else.
I've always loved the term doom scrolling.
Yeah, that's the term was actually only scrolled in 2018. The Macquarie dictionary named it the word of the year in 2020. And so, I got to say that I was. There are times in March, April 2020 when I was pretty hard to come back to keep away from saying, well, what's going on here?
Yep.
And how bad is it? It is a natural phenomenon. We can't sort of say, oh, tomorrow I'm going to check in and see where things are at. But it is something which we can transcend, and it's not something which we need to be indulging in every day. And doom scrolling is a reflection of our natural human propensities, but it is something which is destructive to our emotions, destructive to the time which we have, destructive in so many ways. So we do need to recognize that, and we can take a step back in order to be more effective in how it is we deal with information.
Honey, I can't go to bed yet. There's still someone wrong on the internet.
Yes, indeed.
So what are the mistakes that people make in dealing with the tsunami of available data? You've referred to a couple of points there, but I'm sure you have more to discuss on this.
Well, I think rather than pointing to what goes wrong, it's better to point to what goes right. What should we do? So there's innumerable ways in which we can sort of get lost in the morass. That's easy. It's easy to get misled by information. So what's more interesting is how it is we can do that well. And the first starting point is understanding your purpose. And so there's five powers that I point to in the book, and the first one is purpose. As in, what is it that you want? Why are you looking at information at all in the first place? How does that serve you? What is it that you want to achieve? And I think you do need to take a pretty big frame around your life, what it is you want to achieve, but also just pulling down to some more specific things in terms of, be they financial, or be they in terms of your relationships, or be they in terms of your impact or your achievements. And so these start to frame why am I engaging with information? What is it that I want from that information? And I think there's also this frame as what is the relationship with information that I want? Because we have a relationship with information, just as we have a relationship with money, we have a relationship with our health, we have a relationship with the people around us, we have a relationship with society. And so our relationship with information can be destructive or enabling. We can have just as we can have a bad relationship with money. And I think that's actually quite a strong analogy. People can have an attitude towards money which is worrying and destructive, or we can also have a relationship with money which is very enabling in terms of saying, well, this is the way that's role in my life, and in terms of giving me the things which I want, and this is the way in which I will treat that. In a similar way with information, where we can have a relationship where it feels like we are abused. It's an abusive relationship. We abuse the information, the information abuses us. Or we can have a very constructive relationship, a loving relationship, where we love information and it gives us what we want in return because we treat it the right way. And so that's really the starting point, is this idea of purpose, the why of our information, and building a positive relationship with information so that it's something that gives us joy rather than worrying us or distressing us or taking our time and making us worried.
It sounds to me like self-examination is a major part in dealing with the information overload rather than the information itself.
Absolutely, because it's a relationship with you. And your relationship with information is going to be different from someone else's relationship with information because there's different things which they want. You can't prescribe. I can't say to you, Phil, or anyone else, this is the information you should be looking at, because that's you to work out what it is you want and what the sources are and how that best serves you. And so yes, absolutely. This is something where we do need to be starting. Again, that purpose, that why, for me is not the same as for you or for anyone else. And so it is a reflective process.
So tell us a little bit more about the 5 powers then.
So the 5 powers are, first is purpose, the why of the information. The second is framing, and this is building frameworks for our knowledge, where we, instead of just having lots of bits of information, we're saying, how do these fit together? What is the framework, which is the foundation for the knowledge and the understanding of what it is that I'm looking at? Third is filtering, understanding, being better and better at discerning between the information that serves us and the information that doesn't serve us, and the sources that we use to be able to achieve that. The fourth is attention, where it's not about whether we are focused or not focused. It's saying there are many different types of attention that we could have, which includes just scanning information, assimilating that, taking that in. That's a different attention mode. Exploring for information, deep diving to sort of build knowledge or understanding. And one of the other critical attention modes is regenerating, so that we can, rebuild our attention. So working out, scheduling how it is we spend our time and our attention. And the fifth one, and arguably the master power of humans, is synthesis, where we pull all of this together to build a understanding of the whole, the way everything fits together. And this is really the master skill today in a world where machine capabilities are advancing all the time. So analysis is breaking things down into their pieces. It's slicing and dicing, and that is the foundation of our intellectual education. When we go to university, it's all about the slicing, the dicing, the analysis. The synthesis is the pulling together of all of the pieces, literally everything we've experienced in our lifetimes, not just one particular argument, but saying, well, how does what I'm seeing now in the markets relate to what I saw when I was driving along the bus the other day, to this thought that I saw in this book the day, to the conversation they had, and I can see the sense, I can see the ways in which this fits together. So famously, Charlie Munger, the partner of Warren Buffett, talks about our mental models. And our mental models, the way I frame that, is really all the distillation of all of our experience in the ways in which we shape our decisions. And in fact, in an investment context, one of the interesting ways of thinking about that is our emotional experiences with investment, as in our successes and our failures and our response to that, the patterns that we've seen along that. And a lot of this is at an unconscious level. So the analysis is at a conscious level, the synthesis, and that's the real capability of our brains, our still yet not fully explored capabilities of our minds, is that unconscious level of pulling together all of the pieces that we have experienced and we have seen to be able to understand the whole. And the reality is that the better investors are the ones who have been able to pull together that sense, that understanding of all of the fragments, and to be able to essentially make better decisions through not just the numbers or the analysis they have right on front of their plate when looking at a particular potential investment, but that full context of markets, market behaviors, industries, shifts, time frames, perspectives, human behavior,
fear,
and the things which shift that. Yes, absolutely.
And fear, incredibly, because that's one of the things, one of the most controlling emotions that people have in investment markets, especially at the moment.
Yes, and that requires where we it's partly recognized their own fear, but also the fear in others, which shapes markets. And this is something where our synthesis is pulling together that all of the pieces that we are seeing in a particular decision to make sense of the whole, of whether this, whether essentially the future value exceeds current price, and whether that all of the universe of information we're taking in through our lives pulls together to be able to inform a better decision.
Artificial intelligence is now taking a bigger role in organising and systematising information on our behalf. What do you see as the future of work and the impact of AI?
So machine learning and artificial intelligence is advancing at an incredible pace. And machine learning is always domain specific. So the very nature of machine learning is that it's using training data, and that training data that comes from a set with defined parameters. So we've already seen across an extraordinary array of domains, including just about every game devised, and also many work functions, such as approving credit loans or recognizing potential cancerous growths in images and so on, that machines are exceeding human performance. But that is always in a specific domain. Now, when we go out, so this idea, that's in a way the analysis, when we're looking at particular data. And for the foreseeable future, we can't see the ways in which machine learning will be able to transcend those domains. So this capability of synthesis, to be able to go across domains, is a uniquely human capability for the foreseeable future. So if we look at the future of work, there will be, amongst other things, work done anywhere around the world. Anyone, anywhere will be able to participate in work. And there's obviously billions of people who relatively recently have access to the internet and unlimited free learning and are becoming part of that landscape. And we also have machines that will increasingly are and will very rapidly become more and more part of our work processes. But where humans will continue to excel is that capability of synthesis, the pulling together of the higher order view, to be able to combine that analysis and synthesis, or essentially the unexplicit pattern recognition together with the explicit pattern recognition, to be able to make better decisions, to see opportunities where others have not seen opportunities before, to be able to perceive the whole, to understand the frame. So the future of work is one where humans will be pushed more and more to these faculties of synthesis, these creative domains, ones of relationships, of developing that expertise in really understanding how a whole domain fits together.
So investors who are just approaching markets for the first time in their lives, how can they use the skills described in your book to become better investors?
So one of the first things is to be able to frame areas where they will to be developing their expertise. And it's not as if anybody can be an expert in everything in the markets. So rather than trying to be an expert in everything, or to defer your judgment to other experts, one of the first steps is to say, this is a specific area in which I will develop expertise. It will be a industry sector. It will be a type of analysis. Will be a specific set of companies. It will be, and part of it is also coming back and to be able to set, time frames for investment and be able to think that and saying, these are areas where I will develop my expertise. So rather than trying to know everything, which you can't, and there is nobody in, even the longest people have been in the market the longest, they're not experts in everything because they have focus. They've developed expertise in particular domains. So the first thing is to be able to, from your purpose, to be able to choose where it is you will begin to develop expertise. And once you develop expertise in one domain of the markets, you'll more readily be able to build on expertise in other areas of the markets, be they sectors or types of investment classes, or in terms of types of investment or types of analysis. So that's the first step. And then to start to regularly have consistently a set of behaviors saying, these are the sources that I will use. This is the ways in which I will take those in. And one of the key things, of course, for any investor is developing investment theses. This is my investment thesis, that this will come to pass in this period of time. And, in this, for example, you might say there's an industry sector which I think will grow. And these are the stocks within that. This is my thesis is that this is a sector that will grow. This is a stock which will grow within that. So when that investment thesis, you're trying to look at both confirming and contradictory information. So you're looking for who is most knowledgeable. One of the first things, you build a set of sources. These are the people that are most knowledgeable about this domain of my investment thesis. Then be able to, from that investment thesis, to look at what are the different opinions. What is the foundation of those different opinions? To unpick that, to be able to start to build this is the framing, this is the frameworks now. You're building a framework of saying, all right, well, this is my thesis. This is information that supports that. There's information that might make me reconsider in particular ways. This is the ways in which I balance. This is the synthesis that I build of my investment thesis from all of the different pieces of information. I was looking for diverse enough sources. And I think that's one of the first things. As you develop your expertise, I think you want to say, I want to build for myself my own investment thesis. I don't want to be looking at, I won't name names, but various online
gurus,
online stock recommendation platforms, and just sort of say, oh, look, they recommend this, I'm going to buy that. Well, okay, maybe that's one piece of input, but you want to be taking some other pieces of input as well. And for yourself, making your own decisions by being able to build that structure and the frameworks of what it is that makes you comfortable with your particular investment.
Yeah, but I think that's something that I've learned in this podcast, that people love to have a guru. They want to have someone basically to tell them what to buy without having to put in the hard work. And people, first of all, they need to understand that they've got to do hard work to get anywhere in investing like this if they're going to be directly investing in stocks and shares, and to also be humble, because there are many, many, many highly trained, highly educated financial services people with incredible tools at their disposal that are trying to achieve the same thing as you are.
Yes, absolutely. And I tell you, that's you're always competing essentially with companies with literally billions of dollars of their resources, so at their disposal. So I think,
and incredible access to management of companies and all of that.
Yes, and I think that you do need to be recognize the realities of that, and I think part of, and also recognizing why it is you're investing directly yourself. And to be frank, I think one of the most important reasons is the fun, where this is partly an endeavor to do well with your money, but in order to in that process of looking to outperform what professional managers might do, I think part of it must be and should be that this is enjoyable. I like looking for information. I like discovering new things. I like building my own ways of thinking about it. And if you don't enjoy it, then you should be going through a professional manager. And doing it for yourself should be about the joy and the fun of it. And I think that comes back to purpose. The purpose for you to invest in the market should be at least as much as I want to enjoy this, I want to have fun with it, as it is to say, there's a purely financial objective of, getting a particular return on your capital.
So how can Zen practice, that's Zen Buddhism, I'm presuming, help us to see things that others don't?
Attention is at the center of our lives, to pay attention to the things which are around us and to be able to make sense of those. And the reality is that our brains are always distracted. The psychologists talk about the default mode network, which is essentially mind wandering. So when our mind wanders, that is described by psychologists as default mode. And that's the reality. Most of the time, our minds are wandering. And in order to be able to pay attention to the information that's coming in, to the things that matter to us, to what is around us, we do need to train that. We do need to exercise. Our attention is a muscle, which we can either become flabby and not very capable, or it can be something which is fit and help us to be able to direct our attention well. So Zen Buddhism is, and so my own experience of this is having lived in Japan for a number of years, including a year in a Zen center, where the Zen dojo, where essentially we lived our everyday lives. I was a financial journalist at the time. But each day we meditated twice a day, and we were part of the community. And there were lectures from our Zen master. And the foundation of Zen is simply being there, of being aware, of seeing the world around us. And one of the instructive things about Zen meditation is it is done with our eyes open. So most forms of meditation, your eyes are closed and you are closed off from the world. Whereas in Zen meditation, you are open to the world. You are seeing the world as it is, to be able to sort of see that information coming in. So as in living our lives, including in investments, we need to be open to the signals. We need to train ourselves not to have our mind wandering, so we never even notice the world, to actually looking around us and seeing the world that we have. And again, it's fairly easy today to look around us and see people that are not seeing the world around them at all. All they've got is a screen in front of them, or they're distracted in their thoughts, as opposed to actually perceiving the world. So whether we are reading annual reports of a company, or being able to see what's happening in the market, or simply noticing the world around us and be able to notice there are particular change in behaviors which may suggest that there is an investment opportunity, we need to train ourselves to notice, to be able to be better at paying attention, to be able to guide our awareness. And this is really at the foundation of, firstly, just really being truly alive in a very busy world, to be able to see the world around us, and to be able to, by choice, direct our attention to the things which will serve us, in providing us insights into investment opportunities, or to the things that will simply give us a better life.
And it's also important, I think, just to turn off and let your mind have a bit of time just to process all the information that it's ingesting.
Yeah, although that is a different mode. That is more the modes of synthesis.
Oh, okay.
So
right, yeah.
in meditation or in Zen, your mind is empty.
Yeah.
You're just there. But there is value. There's a critical part of that phase. So in synthesis, the chapter on synthesis, I look at the practices that we can do to be able to both seed and incubate ideas, where we start to say, oh, well, this is the foundations for some of the my thinking. This is the research which I'm doing. This is the piece together. This is the contradictions that I see in all of that. And then being able to pull yourself into a state of mind where you're incubating those ideas, to be able to, where in background mode you're pulling those together in order to be able to reflect, to come up with the synthesis, to be able to come up with that insight into what will actually be driving value. So that's a different frame of mind. One is that of pure attention. Another is one of incubating ideas. And we need to, again, these are some of the different attention modes which we can schedule and prioritize in order to be able to get the best outcomes.
So, Ross, you seem very together and you've got a lot of things sorted in your life. Were you ever hopeless?
I've always taken this frame of whatever the situation now, there is always a better course of action. So yeah, I have mood swings, I've got ups and downs, I've had lots of downs as well as ups. And there are times when illness or other things have just made that a lot harder to get in that positive frame. But I've always managed to come back to this frame saying, well, wherever I am, there are things which are more likely to lead to a better outcome than less thing. And I think one of the most important things in life and in investment is this idea of sunk costs. And that's one of the foundation of a large proportion of investment errors is this idea of sunk costs. All right, I have made an investment. It's gone to half of its value. The fact that it's gone to half its value is absolutely irrelevant. The point is, this is where it is now. Is it going to go up from now or down from now? And wanting to get your money back that you invested into it is absolutely irrelevant. The point is, that's where it is now. Is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? And that hope of regaining your money is just an emotion which is absolutely misleading and terribly destructive in investment. And the same thing in life. All right, I made a bad decision. This bad thing which is out of my control happened to me. I'm in this is where I am. I've lost all my money, whatever it may be. That's the past. The only thing you can make a decision about, the only thing you can act about is the future. So you do need to let go of the past. And in a way, I think for investors, that's a particularly pointed and important lesson. Doesn't matter what you bought something at or what the history was. The point is, what are your assets now? What's the allocation? And is this the best? And if not, then we should change it so that it is better, irrespective of what happened in the past. And the same thing in life, where it is about saying, okay, this is where I'm at. And it may be depressing. It's not a good situation.
It's not a pretty sight.
I've had ups and downs. There are times when I think, oh my God. But I then managed to get to this point saying, okay, well, what is it that I should do now? What are those next steps? So I would say I've often been beaten down, but I've never quite been hopeless, because I've just managed to get in that state of saying, all right, well, okay, what are the things which I need to do next? Let me just do those, whether I feel like it or not, and that will help me get back on the right course.
Ross, I've been really enjoying this discussion. How can listeners find out about you and your work and more about what you're doing and what you've got to say?
So the book is Thriving on Overload, and I would hope that the old adage, wherever good books are bought, applies. Or if you don't find it in the first place you look, you can find it somewhere else. We also have a website, thrivingonoverload.com, which has not just information about the book, but also a podcast, as it happens, and an online course where, for those who want to dive deeper, they can actually provide the training and helping people to build their own personal information plan, which serves them in their purpose, and a lot of other resources. And more generally, my work as a keynote speaker and strategy advisor, you can go to rossdawson.com or just search for Ross Dawson or Thriving on Overload. I'm sure you'll find some useful resources on the way.
I forgot to mention the podcast. Tell us the name of the podcast.
Thriving on Overload.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we'll put links to all of those in the description, in the notes, and the blog post, so listeners can find out more. Ross Dawson, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's been a great pleasure.
If you found this podcast helpful, please tell a friend, especially if it's someone who needs to start thinking about investing for their future. You'll be helping them and helping me to keep this show on the road.
Shares for Beginners is for information and educational purposes only. It isn't financial advice, and you shouldn't buy or sell any investments based on what you've heard here. Any opinion or commentary is the view of the speaker only, not Shares for Beginners. This podcast doesn't replace professional advice regarding your personal financial needs, circumstances, or current situation.
And thank you for listening to my podcast.